what burdens was Jesus referring to when he was talking to the religious elite during his day? He told them point blank that they laid heavy burdens on people that they weren't willing themselves to lift. They weren't willing to help others with their burdens, but they certainly wanted to heap burdens upon them. Heavy burdens that they couldn't even lift. I don't know if he was referring just to the poor or to everyone. The poor, the rich, the middle class. Don't know. And what were those burdens? I can make some assumptions without referring to directly to any specific verses or passages in the historical records. But I can assume that he was talking about the burdens being what they felt that they had to do in order to appease God and to be righteous. Heavy burdens, what they had to do to be cleared with God and okay with God. Heavy burdens. I don't know if you saw my previous videos, but I mentioned that the consistency throughout the New Testament, even in the Old Testament, the prophets, they all mentioned, along with the apostles, that God didn't lay heavy burdens on people. That they were to be joyous and happy and content and gleeful and thankful. Well, how can you be thankful when you're carrying heavy burdens? It causes bitterness and strife and anguish and anger and discontentment. God doesn't want that. So what are these heavy burdens that neither their fathers nor they could bear? Fathers being the ancestors of the modern day Jews. They weren't able to even bear the burdens that were placed upon them by the elite religious hierarchy. So they were always made to feel guilty because their sacrifices weren't good enough. They weren't good enough to measure up to God's standards and His holiness. So, and they were all these restrictions and things were placed upon them, and these traditions and ceremonies that they had to go through in order to be right with God. Well, that's what's so cool about Christ. As Christ said, I ain't placing those burdens on you. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. There is no burden. There is no yoke. You're not an ox. You're a human being made in the image of God. A yoke was a device put on oxes so that they could plow together and labor arduously and strenuously over the farmland so they could sow their crops. They towed the plow so they could put their seed in it. But Jesus said that His burdens were light and that His yoke was easy. It's not to be strenuous. It's a total gift. We approach God thankfully and joyfully because we do it from a position of freedom. Freedom is free, though it costs someone else. Freedom does come at a price, but guess what? You don't have to pay for the freedom. The freedom was already paid by blood. In a religious sense, the blood of Christ. But that is true even on a political level. That freedom cost blood. The blood of people's blood was spilled for this nation. in order for contemporary citizens to have freedom. Well, it's the same way in religious context. A person's blood was shed, but that person was a perfect sacrifice, a perfect man who was willing to go to the cross for humanity.